Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Achakodash. Double honors to the apostles of GMS to give us his truth and Holy Spirity, and salutations to all you accomplishing his word throughout the four corners of the earth in sincerity and in truth. This lesson is going to be entitled, The Lord is About to Humble the out of Esau. And, as we know, you have Trump threatening Iran, having all these back and forths, along with the Ayatollah of Iran, which is, the supreme leadership of Iran, basically been having them war talks. Trump is sending another aircraft carrier group over there to that region, and basically Iran been saying that if you attack us, that automatically you're gonna lose 4,000 troops, because Iran has ballistic missile capabilities, which we saw back in the 12-day war last year between Israel, Iran, as well as America. We saw how, pretty much Israel's Iron Dome, which is their defense system, wasn't able to stop all of Iran's missiles, especially the hypersonic ones. So basically, Iran's strategy was using their old arsenal of missiles to deplete America and Israel's interceptor missiles, which are those missiles that stop the incoming ones. And they were successful at it because America and Israel, America spent 25%, a quarter of all their interceptor missiles just in that time frame. And now they're talking about, as you see here in the article, exclusive U.S. military preparing for potentially weeks-long Iran operations. So here it is, just last year, you spent a quarter of all your interceptor missiles in 12 days, and now you're thinking about going to war for weeks. That the math doesn't math. It ain't mathing, which shows you how, like the scriptures say, the pride of your heart, which is you Edomites, the so-called white race, have deceived you. The Most High has given you so much power, with your sword, which is your blessing. You've been, successful at going around the earth, stumping everybody out, that don't want to basically play ball. And you're thinking you're going to do the same with Iran, but that's going to be a snare to you. And I'm going to get that too. The Lord said he's going to lay a snare for Babylon, right? It says, Trump says it has been difficult to make a deal with Iran. U.S. fully expects Iran to retaliate, officials say. A sustained campaign carries more risk to U.S. forces, broader Middle East. Yeah, because, the war with Iran won't just be with Iran in that region. It will be a regional war, as Iran said, meaning the whole Middle East is going to be on fire, and pursuing the prophecy, the Middle East region is known as the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the Valley of Yahweh-Shaphat, the Valley of the Heavenly Father's judgment, So this is all prophecy, man. This is why all nations are being dragged over there, from China, Russia, Turkey. All these nations are being brought to that region because we're getting ready to see Judgment Day, which is nuclear holocaust, and Yahushua, whom the world ignorantly called Jesus Christ, returning with the innumerable multitude of UFOs. It says the U.S. military is preparing for the possibility of sustained weeks-long operations against Iran if President Donald Trump orders an attack, two U.S. officials told Reuters, in what could become a far more serious conflict than previously seen between the countries. The disclosure by the officials, who spoke on condition of an anonymity, tongue twister, due to the sensitive nature of the planning, raises the stakes for the diplomacy underway between the United States and Iran. And that's how these devils operate. On one hand, they act like they're doing diplomacy. They're trying to find a deal, but really, they're planning for war. As the scriptures say about Esau, I think it's Psalms 49, about how the inward thought, not the inward thought, how they speak peace. Let's see, is it 49 or Psalms 55? Psalms 55. Oh shoot, it's a lot. Let's see, 55. Is it 55? No, let's see. The words of his mouth, smoother than butter. Oh, it is 55 and 21. Okay. This is Psalms 55 and 20. It says, he hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant. And that's what the so-called white man has done over the centuries, especially against the Lord's chosen people, the Israelites, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. You know, the white man has made hundreds of treaties with the Native Americans and broke every last one of them. So what makes you heathens that have been in bed with him, you know, that made alliance with him, what makes you think he's going to keep his covenant with you? You know, that's how the devil operates, man. Right? It says the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. That's right. So, you know, the words of his mouth is smoother than butter. You know, he's acting like he's for peace. He's pro this, he's pro that, you know. He's you know, he's about, you know, human rights and all of that, you know, like Trump did with Iran a couple weeks ago. You know, the protests that the CIA and Mossad started in Iran, and then Trump talking about, yeah, you know, hold on, I'm coming to liberate you, you know, they're coming to give these Iranians freedom. Get the fuck out of here, man. Everybody know what you're about. You're exposed now. Right? The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. So, yeah, they're acting like they're doing diplomacy, trying to find a deal with Iran. But, you know, really they're preparing for war. They're sending all the troops there. They're setting up all the military equipment there, sending all these big tanker planes for refueling, big planes, you know, fighter jets, you know, sending all this their equipment over there in that region, you know. And Iran basically said they're going to destroy all that shit, man. You know, so World War III is at hand, right? But the Lord is about to humble the shit out of Edom, you know. That's what's been on my mind, you know, because they think that they think it's gonna be the same as those other countries that they took over, such as Iraq, Afghanistan, and so on and so forth. But Iran is not them countries, man. Iran is militarily equipped. Iran is the military power of the Middle East. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse. Okay. I'm gonna start at 21. It says, go up against the land of Maritime. Maritime is America. When you go into the word for maritime in the Hebrew is Marathiam. Marathiam means double rebellion, and it's another name for Babylon. So double rebellion. America has been the most rebellious nation. Well, America's not a nation, it's a country. A nation is people that descended of a common descent, a common man, such as the nation of Israel, the nation of Edom, you know. So the nation of Edom controls the country of America, the country of Babylon, right? So America has been the most rebellious country throughout history, you know, and the root word is mar, and I think it means bitter. Yep, bitter, bitterness. It says of water, food, harlot's end. Of a harlot's end. Is not America known as the harlot in the book of Revelation that rideth upon a scarlet colored beast, which is America controlling NATO and the EU? You know, it says end of wickedness. So America is the end, you know, the border of wickedness, which is the title for Edom. And the kingdom, we're going to know America, which is ruled by Esau, Edom, as the peak of wickedness, past and beyond what the flood was capable of, you know. So the word mar also means bitter, which when we go into the word America, the word for America goes back to Amerigo, right? Which means bitter, right? So Babylon is America, man. This is bitter. How is this bitter? This is a bitter captivity for the children of Israel. This is a bitter kingdom for the righteous because it's nothing but wickedness being spread by this place. All right. So Jeremiah 50 and 21 go up against the land of Maritime, America, even against it and against the inhabitants of Pekod, waste and utterly destroy after them, saith the Lord Yahweh Shemashah, and do according to all that I have commanded thee, which is them nations shooting their missiles here against America. Verse 22, a sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. So a sound of battle is in the land. You know, we're in a time of war, World War III, which is a time of great destruction, global destruction, right? And the sound of battle is happening now between America and Iran. It says, verse 23, how is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How is Babylon become a desolation among the nations? The hammer of the earth, right? Trump been bragging about the previous operation against Iran, Midnight Hammer. You know, he's been bragging about that. The last time they got midnight hammered, right? So the hammer of the earth is America, you know? And I always quote this one general, which I always forget his name. But after 9/11, he had a conference where he was basically speaking about how his superior came to his office with a list of countries they're going to invade over the next couple of years, with Iran being the last one on the list. And he asked why. He said, the superior said, I don't know. I guess when you have a big military, every problem looks like a nail. And basically the military is the hammer and you got to stump it. You got to bang it pretty much. So America's the hammer of the earth and they create problems with other countries to justify using that hammer, you know? So they create that nail. They cause, problems, put sanctions on countries, cause political turmoils, coup d'etats, and all of that. And then they could show the world like, yo, these people need help. They need us. And then boom, send in the military. And then look like they're the saviors of everything. And then, the country ends up poorer than ever, blown to smithereens and so on and so forth. So America's the hem of the earth. The Lord said, how is the hem of the earth cut asunder and broken? Because America's about to get humbled in this up and coming Third World War. This hammer is only used to banging against nails, right? But now you got to actually face other hammers, such as Russia, China, Iran. Those countries ain't no slouch. Iran ain't no slouch, man. They got Russia and China to back them up, but they could hold their own, with their missile technologies, right? And they also have the advantage of the territory, that region, the Persian Gulf. They control the Strait of Hormuz, which basically they said they're going to shut down. And once they do, it's going to collapse the global economy. And that's what these elites want anyways, right? So verse 24, I have laid a snare for thee, and thou wert also taken, O Babylon, and thou was not aware. Yeah, so the Lord said he laid a snare for you, the snare being Iran, right? You've been successful at taking over all the list of all those countries that don't have a central banks, that don't have a central bank. And Iran is the last one on the list. You had North Korea, but, they can't do nothing with that now that they have nuclear weapons. And that's the thing. That's the only way to deter America. And that's what these nations are realizing, that if you have nuclear weapons, America will come in, bully, and touch you, right? And that's why now all of them are getting their hands on that technology. And if they aren't now, they will eventually. And the main ones they're going to be getting it from is Russia, as spoken of in Ezekiel the 30th chapter. How Russia is going to be a guard to those smaller nations, right? So I have laid a snare for thee, and thou wert also taken of Babylon, and thou was not aware. You're not realizing, that this is going to be a downfall. Going to Iran will be the destruction of America. It says, thou wert found and also caught like a thief, because thou hast striven against the Lord. And what the scriptures say, woe to those that are striving with their makers, So how can you, think you're going to be successful and thrive as a country when all you're doing is coming up against the Lord of hosts, legalizing everything that's against the scriptures, consistently blaspheming the Heavenly Father and his people, right? So the Lord set your ass up. The Lord made a trap for you. The Lord have opened his armory. The Lord's armory is those nuclear ICBM weapons, right? And have brought forth the weapons of his indignation. The weapons of his indignation, the righteous anger of the Lord, is the nuclear weapons, right? For this is the work of the Lord of hosts and the land of the Chaldeans. So this is the Heavenly Father working, right? Okay, now let's go to the book of Jeremiah. Not Jeremiah 47, it's like Isaiah 47. This is Isaiah 47, and I'm going to start at 1. It says, "Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground, there is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate." So the Lord is basically telling America the days of hegemony, of American hegemony, global superpower, that shit is over with. And the whole world is witnessing it now. With Donald Trump in office, he's literally bringing this country down to its knees. We're witnessing the fall of an empire. Take the mail source and ground mail, which represents going through hell. That's what's going on in America. No jobs, turmoils, right? Uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. That's right. So Yahweh Shem Shah is going to take vengeance, for what happened to his people. Just like how the Lord took vengeance on Pharaoh and any other people that put their hands on the children of Israel. The Lord is taking vengeance. This is why this country is going down, right? And your nakedness, your shame is being uncovered. The Epstein files expose everything. Expose all these so-called conspiracies that we've been bringing out for all these years, starting with the apostles, about how they do all these wicked human child sacrifices, drinking blood, all the wicked satanic shit these devils do, man. And this is proof that this is Babylon. You worship Baphomet, Baal, right? All these wicked pagan gods, man, right? So it's all being exposed. The pedophilia, the bribery, the deceit, all this shit is being exposed, man. And you got these countries in the East, such as Russia, Putin, China, all these different nations. They're basically calling out Babylon the Great, about how corrupt it is. And I'm going to jump down to verse. Matter of fact, I'm going to start at 7 right quick. It says, "And thou saidst, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou dost not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it." And that's America. At one point, they thought they couldn't get taken down. And even now, they still have that mindset, which is why, when Trump talking that talk, you seen, when people react to what he says about Iran, and, when they see the videos about the aircraft carrier, those fighter jets flying and all of that, these people are like, oh, it's going to hurt Iran. They better make a deal. And, not realizing that America's going to hurt itself. It says, "Therefore hear now this, thou that are given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that says in thine heart, I am, and none else besides me." Yeah, which is America. They're given to pleasures. Super Bowl, all these different holidays, these different sports events. This place is known for its entertainment, and it exposes it to the rest of the world. The most entertainment that's being watched is being watched here in Babylon, right? And they do it carelessly. And it says in their heart, I am and none else besides me. So that's the mindset of America. We can't get taken down, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. They boast and brag about, the military, and they don't think anybody else is on their level. It says, "I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children." So they don't think that they can get affected by war and, and other things that these other nations are known to be affected by, So, they're going to get caught off guard. They're not used to economic collapse and hyperinflation and all of that. These other nations, they are. It says, but these two things shall come to thee in a moment and one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection for the multitude of thy sorceries and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. That's right. So these things are going to happen suddenly. Trump sending them carriers there. Don't be surprised if one day we wake up, those aircraft carriers and warships have been sunk. Thousands of sailors dead. And now it's an announcement for a military draft to go to put boots on Iran to take it out. Right? That's going to catch people off guard. A moment and one day. And that's also going to collapse the economy. Right? Full-blown World War III. It says, yep. It says, for thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, if thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted thee, and thou saidst in thine heart, I am and none else beside me. That's right. So that's their mindset. They don't think that the Most High sees all the wickedness. They've been behind the scenes, doing all this witchcraft, right? And now it's being exposed to the world. That this is what America is based upon. Child sacrifices and all of that. Over there in Iran, they erected a image of Baal and, with the Israeli flag on it and everything, and they burned it down. The whole world knows this place is wicked, man. They call America the great Satan and Israel the little Satan. You see? So these nations know, man. But the Lord is humbling Edom for sure, man. Trump talking that big talk. But, hey, man, these Iranians, they about to shut him up, It says, Obadiah, verse 3, the pride of thine heart have deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the cliffs of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in thine heart, and his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? And we see that's the same mindset that Babylon has in the book of Isaiah, the 47th chapter, right? So that's how we know Edom rules Babylon, because the scriptures emphasize the pride of Babylon and the pride of Edom, And when you go to, I think, Jeremiah, the 49th chapter, it describes Edom as Babylon, and it describes both of the fate of Babylon the Great and Edom is total annihilation, total wasteness and annihilation by fire, uninhabited desert, right? So that's, America's nuclear holocaust, man. The scriptures say in 1 hour, all these things are going to come to naught from the missiles of Russia, China, Iran, and so on and so forth. Right? So your pride have deceived you, And it says, thou that dwellest in the cliffs of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, the American eagle, as a symbol for America, right? And though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord Yahweh Shemashah. And the Lord has been bringing this place down, gradually over this the decades, ever since, the 60s, since they made it up there to space, and the Lord has been bringing them down to the point that we're at now today. If thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how would thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? So the Lord is basically, saying like, yo, when the Lord comes as a thief of the night, he's going to strip Edom, the so-called white men, of everything. And by the way of the missiles, and the rest of them that remain, the elites that's hiding in their bunkers with all their wealth, it's all gathered up for us. Like the scriptures say, it's going to be transferred, because of injuries, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom will be translated from one people to another. The people it will be transferred to is the children of Israel. As it says in the book of Daniel, the kingdom is not going to be left to no other people. In that day shall the Lord set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, which is the kingdom of Yahweh, which will be on earth, ruled and governed by him, along with his elect, the 144,000 and the 1/3, and the Israelites. All right. So the Lord is going to take everything from you. Verse 6, how are the things of Esau searched out? How was his hidden things sought up? Yeah, all these hidden things, it's all coming up now. You know, most of the world didn't know that this was going on. You know, with all this satanic witchcraft and human trafficking and drinking of blood and all this shit. You know, but it's being exposed now. All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. So right now, the whole world is plotting about how to take America down. You know, they're selling their bonds, they're selling their dollars, crippling this economy. And eventually, all these nations is going to be militarily aligned against America, including NATO. But so in the Revelation, the 17th chapter, it says, shall I not in that day, saith the Lord, even destroy the wise men out of Edom and understanding out of the mount of Esau? And that's what's happening now. You know, the Lord is destroying their wisdom. You know, they don't know what to do with Iran. They're going to attack eventually, of course, but was supposed to attack, right? But they end up finding out Iran is no slouch. You know, they have the capability to hit back and hit hard. And Russia and China has been supplying them with advanced fighter jets and radar systems and defense systems and weaponry. You know, Ezekiel 38, right? It says, and thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. Yeah, the Lord is about to slaughter you Edomites, mainly from the missiles, well, starting with the missiles, but mainly after the 1,000 years, you know, when you fulfill your purpose of being a wicked and you serve your judgment of slavery, you're going to be totally wiped out, right? As it says down in the chapter, it says Israel and Joseph, the house of Jacob and Joseph, which is the southern and the northern kingdom, they're going to come together and burn your asses up with spiritual power, you know? But yeah, that's pretty much it on this. You know, I got to run, so I'm going to keep this short and close. So I'm going to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim Ashah, Bashim HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles of GMS to give us his truth and salutations to all you occupation this word. Shalom.